All ladies and gents, this is Napoleon's Marshal Part 1 by the channel Epic History TV. Of all the history I've learned, Napoleon's history is one of the most fun thing that I've learned about because he was just that fascinating. What he did was feel like a movie character, a novel character, like somebody came up with, not something that exists in real world, but he existed in real world. That was just astonishing. So Napoleon basically brought France out of the ruins after the French Revolution. When you have revolution in your country implodes from inside, your resources dries out. Let's just say you're not the top country after that, yet Napoleon brought it out of that and made the top country in the world. That was just ridiculous. So he was just a great general of all time, basically the great general of all time, arguably. He was incredible at the Battle of Austerlitz against Russian. He basically made Russian run away in a panic. His marshal are also one of the best general caliber people in the world. They can be general of their own in other countries if they got the chance like that. Like, Bernadotte become the king of Sweden. So they were just incredible people. Under Napoleon they learned a lot. Napoleon was just great organized military power. So like I said, Bernadotte, he was one of the marshals that struck out because he was under Napoleon. Then Napoleon gave him the Sweden, and in the end he was against Napoleon in the end battles. He was part of the coalition, which to some feels like stabbing him in the back, but arguably Bernadotte was basically more what can you say, loyal to the Sweden because he was king of that. After some times his loyalty goes to the country that he was in, so you can't really blame him for that. Then Napoleon, other marshals comes to mind was in the end videos like Marshal Ney, who was loyal to the end. He was part of the invasion of Russia. He was also part of the second wind of Napoleon in Battle of Waterloo. He wasn't great marshal like Davout, so he failed at some battles in the Waterloo, so that was one of the reasons why Napoleon lost, but he was still loyal nonetheless. Other one, Marshal Grouchy, was also loyal to Napoleon. He was at the Battle of Waterloo. People blame him for his loss, but you can't really blame the guy for following orders, because people are like, he should have went back to Napoleon to aid him in the Battle of Waterloo, but he was just doing what he was told, his written order. He was just following his written order, so you can't really blame him for that. So there is that. Then other is Davout. Well, what can I say about Davout? He was one of the best marshals, the best marshal Napoleon had. He basically went against main Russian army and made them run away. That's how great he was. So basically, if there is anybody great after Napoleon, it was Marshal Davout. And I argued in the end that if Davout was with Napoleon side by side, in the end, the invasion of France, I'm not saying coalition wouldn't have won, but coalition would have sweated like hell. That's how great it would have been, because Napoleon by himself in the end made coalition run away even when he was outnumbered 4-1. So even in the end, Napoleon was so powerful, even outnumbered 4-1, that he was making people retreat. Imagine if Davout was with him side by side. He didn't have to run back and forth, up and down, just to tackle other battles. He would have had Davout with him to tackle other areas. It would have been much different. And who knows, even Napoleon would have been won. We would have had even more time with Napoleon. Who knows? So yeah, Davout was just incredible. There was lots of other marshals too, who was just great. Marshal Schultz that I know of, that he was one of the key marshals at the key battles like Battle of Austerlitz, Battle of Jena. He was one of the key marshals who led key battles and gave Napoleon massive victories. So I don't remember all of the marshals, but I'm just whoever comes to my mind, I'm talking about them. But obviously the Epic History TV has made multiple videos of Napoleon's marshals, so I might remember them, I might not, but let's watch the video.
Terror belli, decus pacis. Terror in war, ornament in peace. The words inscribed on every French marshal's baton. In France, the title of Marshal or Maréchal goes back at least to the 13th century. It represents the highest possible position of military authority, authority symbolized by a marshal's baton. The title was abolished during the French Revolution as incompatible with the egalitarian spirit of the age. But in 1804, Napoleon founded a new empire and restored the ancient rank. That year he picked 18 of France's best generals and made them marshals of the empire. 8 more were created in the years that followed. The marshals outranked everyone in the new empire, apart from Napoleon's family, princes and ministers of state. They came from every background, sons of aristocrats and innkeepers, professional soldiers and those who'd learned on the job, old-school Republicans and Bonaparte loyalists. The youngest, just half the age of the oldest. And though Marshal was a civil title, not strictly a military rank, the men known to the army as les gros bonnets, the big hats, were arguably the most extraordinary, diverse, brilliant and flawed group of military commanders in history. The most favoured were showered with titles and wealth. But the price too was high. Half were wounded, 3 were killed or died of wounds. 2 were executed. This is Epic History TV's guide to Napoleon's marshals. All 26 have been ranked according to our own evaluation of their achievements as marshals, with expert guidance from retired Lieutenant Colonel Remy Porte, former chief historian of the French Army.
Dow better
First,
be number 1.
a thank you to our sponsor, Call of War. Call of War is a free online PvP strategy game played by millions of users worldwide that gives you the chance to rewrite World War II history. Choose your country, join the war and fight other players in epic real-time campaigns that unfold over the course of weeks. Get to know the strengths of multiple unit types and use them to come up with a strategy to crush your enemies by land, air and sea. Research trees unlock more devastating weapons, all the way up to atomic bombs. Build an empire by conquering territory and capturing capitals, while forging strategic alliances with other players to reach your goals. Call of War is fully cross-platform and can be played on the same account on PC or mobile. Click on the link below to get 13,000 gold and 1 month of High Command subscription for free. Available only for 30 days. More than 2,000 French generals served in the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. Many were brilliant leaders. A few probably deserved to be marshals, more than some who were. Any selection can only be difficult and highly subjective, but here's our pick of 12 of the best.
Battle of Austerlitz was just incredible. When anybody who watched the entire series of Napoleonic Wars must go back and watch that one, because that just puts into perspective, like, that makes you think the Napoleon who did Austerlitz and the Napoleon who did the invasion of Russia, are they the same people? It really makes you question that. He was just brilliant at Austerlitz.
Bertrand, Napoleon's faithful aide-de-camp, who commanded 4th Corps at the Battle of Leipzig. Clausel, a veteran commander of the war in Spain. Desaix, Napoleon's close friend, killed at Marengo, aged 31. Prince Eugène, Napoleon's adopted son, a hero of the Russian retreat. Gérard, one of Napoleon's best corps commanders by 1814, made a marshal by King Louis-Philippe in 1830. Goudon, whose infantry division bore the brunt of the fighting at Auerstedt in 1806, died of wounds near Smolensk in 1812. Junot, who first served with Napoleon at Toulon in 1793, probably committed suicide after his fall from favour in 1813. Lassalle, the Hussar general, among the best light cavalry commanders of the Napoleonic Wars, killed at Wagram, aged 34. Maison, who told his division on the morning of Leipzig that they must win that day or all be killed, made Marshal by King Charles X in 1829. Nansouty, the heavy cavalry commander who died of wounds and exhaustion, aged 46. Saint-Hilaire, hero of Austerlitz, died of wounds received at Aspern in 1809. Vandamme, of whom Napoleon once said, "If I had to invade hell, I'd want him commanding the vanguard." And now, Napoleon's 26th Marshal.
So Van Damme is a true surname. I thought Jean-Claude Van Damme just came up with that.
Ranked in order of merit. 26. Marshal Perignon. When Napoleon created the first 18 marshals, 4 were honorary marshals, recognized for past service to France. Perignon was one of these.
Not really marshals,
a former
but
officer in the Royal Army, he'd won fame in the Revolutionary Wars, fighting the Spanish on the Pyrenees front. He later served as ambassador to Spain. After a brief retirement, he was sent to Italy and commanded the French left wing at the disastrous Battle of Novi, where the army was routed by Suvorov's Russians, and Perignon was badly wounded and captured. His appointment as honorary marshal in 1804 was a political move by Napoleon, a way to win acceptance for his new empire, by emphasizing continuity with the revolution, by rewarding its military heroes. Perignon...
See, there you go. People think that Napoleon was just great military mind and that's why he was at the power. But he wasn't just great military mind. He also had the great political mind. He knew who to make marshals so people would be cheerful, people would accept Napoleon. So he wasn't just some great military mind, he was also great political mind too.
Never held active command as a marshal, but served as governor of Parma, and later Naples. His eldest son, Pierre, was a cavalry officer, killed at Friedland in 1807. Perignon retired in 1813, but refused to support Napoleon when he returned from exile in 1815 and was stripped of his marshal's baton. His rank was later restored by King Louis XVIII. 25. Marshal Bruen. Bruen was another marshal whose appointment owed much to politics. As a fiery Republican and former close ally of revolutionary leader Georges Danton, his support was politically useful for Napoleon. Bruen joined the army during the Terror, the most extreme period of the revolution. His political connections ensured rapid promotion, and he was sent to help put down a counter-revolutionary revolt in Bordeaux.
French Revolution was just horrid. People went to guillotine like it's nothing. Left and right, people just getting cut off in the middle of the town. It's just ugh.
Oh. In 1795, as a 30-year-old brigadier general, he helped Napoleon disperse a royalist mob in Paris with the famous whiff of grape shot. Bruen then served with Napoleon in Italy, fighting in several of his famous early victories. He won a reputation as a fierce divisional commander and enthusiastic plunderer of Italian towns and churches. In 1798, he commanded the French occupation of Switzerland, while extorting 200,000 francs from the wealthy Swiss communes, the equivalent of several $1 million today. It was said that Bruen's personal carriage was so laden with gold when it left Switzerland that it immediately broke down. The next year he won his most important victory, while commanding French forces in Holland, defeating an Anglo-Russian army at the Battle of Castricum and saving France from invasion. But a short, calamitous spell commanding the army of Italy convinced Napoleon that Bruen was not fit for high command. Instead, he sent him to be ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, where in 1804 he learned that he'd been made a marshal. But Bruen's lack of delicacy combined with a towering sense of self-importance,
He learned, so basically they sent a letter like, hey, look at that, you're a marshal now. Huh.
did not make him a successful diplomat. He was recalled to France, but as governor of the Hanseatic ports, blundered again, drafting a treaty with Sweden that failed to make any mention of the French emperor. Whether a deliberate insult or act of incompetence, Napoleon was furious, and Bruen was sacked. Bruen spent the next 7 years at his country estate. He bitterly opposed the return of the Bourbon monarchy in 1814, and rallied to Napoleon when he returned from exile the next year. But in the tumult following Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo, Bruen was cornered by a royalist mob in Avignon, murdered and tossed into the river Rhône. 24. Marshal Sergei. Sergei was another of the 4 honorary marshals whom Napoleon wished to recognize for past service. In contrast to Bruen, Sergei was a professional soldier of the old school, a veteran of the 7 Years' War, and a stern disciplinarian. This background was not necessarily an asset during the French Revolution, when any officer who'd served in the Royal Army was viewed with suspicion. But Colonel Sergei's training and diligence were soon recognized as assets to the new French Republic. By 1795, he was a general serving with Napoleon in Italy, where his stand against corruption and looting won him the nickname the Virgin of Italy. Sergei was a reliable, if unspectacular, commander, who won an important victory at Mondovi at a crucial moment in Napoleon's rise to fame. The following year, he accepted the Austrian surrender at the end of the long siege of Mantua. 2 years later, fighting under General Moreau's command, Sergei and his division were cut off by the Russians and forced to surrender. Released on parole, he was back in Paris in time to support Napoleon's coup d'etat of 18 Brumaire. Sergei then retired from active command, but Napoleon, remembering his past service, made him an honorary marshal and governor of Les Invalides, the retirement home and hospital for old soldiers. There, shortly before the fall of Paris in 1814, Sergei oversaw the burning of more than 1,000 captured flags and standards, to prevent them falling into Allied hands. 23. Marshal Kellermann.
Damn, that's heavy.
Kellermann was another honorary marshal, the oldest at 68, and famed throughout France as the saviour of the Revolution. A career soldier from a middle-class background, he'd seen distinguished service as a cavalry officer in the 7 Years' War. At the beginning of the Revolutionary Wars, he was a general, commanding a frontier army at the moment of greatest crisis, when it seemed foreign invasion was about to stamp out the revolution and restore the ancien regime. But at Valmy,
7 Years' War, then French Revolution, then Napoleonic Wars. People of France like, damn, not even a decade goes by and there's a massive war again. People are dying left and right. I'm surprised how French people survived after that, and most of them didn't just die out.
in September 1792, Kellermann's Army of the Centre stood its ground, and with a ferocious artillery barrage, persuaded the Prussian army to withdraw. Valmy was not a stunning tactical victory, but it was a turning point of history that saved the infant French Republic. When the revolution took a more radical turn, even a war hero like Kellermann became suspected of royalist links, and spent a year in prison under the threat of the guillotine. Acquitted and restored to command, he was poised to launch a new offensive in Italy, when he was sidelined, first by General Scherer, then in favour of a rising new talent, General Bonaparte. Kellermann later specialised in army administration and training, a role he continued to perform under Napoleon, whilst also entering politics and serving as President of the Senate. His son, General François-Étienne Kellermann, followed in his father's footsteps, serving as one of Napoleon's best cavalry commanders.
Yeah.
22.
There comes the grouchy.
Marshal Grushi. When Napoleon returned from his first exile in 1815, he created one last marshal for the upcoming campaign, Emmanuel de Grushi. Although now infamous for failing to march to Napoleon's aid during the Battle of Waterloo, up to that moment, Grushi had had a long and distinguished military career.
He was following written orders, man. You can't blame somebody for following orders, man.
An aristocrat who embraced the French Revolution, Grushi served with distinction throughout the Revolutionary Wars, fighting counter-revolutionaries in the Vendée and serving in Italy, where he was wounded and captured at the Battle of Novi. Under the Empire, Grushi excelled as commander of a dragoon division in Marshal Murat's cavalry reserve. He was praised by the Emperor for his part in the Great French Charge at Eylau, played an important role buying time for Napoleon at Friedland, and expertly covered the French right wing at Wagram. For the invasion of Russia, he commanded 3rd Cavalry Corps and was wounded at Borodino. He survived the horrors of the retreat, but was left so exhausted it took him several months to recover.
Yeah, because if you haven't seen my reaction to this, go see it. When I first saw that, it's like, this is a horror movie. The all setup, the way Russians were following. First of all, Napoleon just goes there and dominates everything, takes over Moscow and everything. Then winter comes and everything turns around. Russians are chasing Napoleon, Napoleon just running back to France. It's like a horror movie. That's just ridiculous.
He returned for Napoleon's 1814 campaign in France, and was wounded twice more. Grushi was made a marshal at the start of the 100 Days campaign, and commanded Napoleon's right wing at Ligny. After the battle was won, he was ordered to pursue the retreating Prussians to prevent them joining up with Wellington's Anglo-Allied army. 2 days later, as the Battle of Waterloo raged 10 miles to the west, Grushi made the fateful decision to follow his written orders, rather than march to join Napoleon.
Yeah, you
And
can't
has been
follow
widely blamed for the French Emperor's defeat ever since.
That's stupid.
Grushi's vilification is not wholly fair, not least because Napoleon rarely encouraged his marshals to show initiative, and often flew into rages if they deviated from his written orders.
Exactly.
Nor should one blunder obscure the distinguished record of one of the Grande Armée's best cavalry generals. Grushi fled to America after Napoleon's defeat to escape.
I mean, this is the time when Napoleon came back after a massive defeat. This is not the time where you just try to outthink Napoleon. If Napoleon told you to do this, you do that, regardless of what. This is not the time to fault him for just following orders, man.
Royalist reprisals, but was pardoned and returned to France in 1820. 21. Marshal Moncey.
He was an honest man, Napoleon. That just sounds like Napoleon didn't know him or didn't have anything else to say. It's like Marshal Moncey. He was an honest man, and I got nothing.
Moncey ran away from home to join the army at the age of 15. After 20 years of uneventful service, he'd risen no higher than the rank of captain. But then came the French Revolution. Most French officers were aristocrats, who, if they did not actively oppose the revolution, were nevertheless regarded as politically suspect. The result was that 3/4 of them either fled the country or were dismissed from the army. Moncey, a middle-class officer with no strong political views, reaped the benefit with meteoric promotion. By 1794, General Moncey was leading the army of the Western Pyrenees to victory over the Spanish. on what was admittedly a relative backwater of the Revolutionary Wars. In 1797 he was dismissed for alleged royalist sympathies, but reinstated in time to support Napoleon's coup of 18 Brumaire. By his own admission, Moncey was a sensitive officer, honest, honourable, but lacking a ruthless streak or iron will to succeed. Napoleon was aware of his limitations as a general, but made him a marshal in 1804 as part of his emphasis on continuity between the Republic and his new empire. Moncey was appointed Inspector General of the Gendarmerie, France's militarized police force, and spent most of the rest of his career commanding reserve troops. He only held one field command again. In light of his victorious record against the Spanish, he was given command of a corps for the 1808 invasion of Spain, operating in the south of the country with mixed success. In 1809 he was replaced by General Junot and returned to France. Moncey's finest hour came in the dying days of the Empire, leading the National Guard of Paris in a courageous but doomed defense of the French capital. In 1815, the restored King of France, Louis XVIII, ordered Marshal Moncey to preside at the trial of Marshal Ney for treason. Moncey regarded Ney as a hero for having saved so many French lives in Russia, and refused, declaring, "If I am not allowed to save my country nor my own life, then at least I will save my honour."
Yeah.
After a short spell in prison, Moncey was allowed to resume his military career, becoming governor of Les Invalides, in which role he presided over the repatriation of Napoleon's remains from St. Helena in 1840. At the end of the ceremony, the 86-year-old Marshal Moncey announced, "And now, let us go home to die."
Damn, that's grim.
20. Marshal Pognatovsky. Prince Józef Poniatowski was the King of Poland's nephew, but his military career began as a cavalry officer in the Austrian army, even serving as aide-de-camp to Emperor Józef II himself. In 1789 he transferred to the Polish army with the rank of Major General, but could not save Poland from partition by its rapacious neighbours, Russia, Prussia and Austria. By 1795, Poland had vanished from the map, swallowed up by its rivals.
Everybody was crapping on Poland even before the Hitler, huh? Even in here, everybody like, Poland, what Poland? And just swallowed it up. In World War II, Hitler like, Poland, that's the first thing I'm gonna strike.
After Napoleon's defeat of Prussia in 1806, Poniatowski decided loyal service to the French Emperor was the best way to win Poland's restoration, although he never fully trusted Napoleon's aims. Sombre, serious and brave, Poniatowski proved an able commander of Duchy of Warsaw forces in Napoleon's service. When war broke out with Austria in 1809, while Napoleon advanced on Vienna, Poniatowski waged a brilliant supporting campaign against a larger Austrian army in Galicia. For the invasion of Russia, he commanded the Polish 5th Corps. He and his troops distinguished themselves first at Smolensk and again at Borodino, leading the attack on the right wing. Poniatowski and his corps performed heroically throughout the campaign, motivated in part by their old animosity towards Russia. But by the end of the retreat, 5th Corps had been virtually destroyed. Poniatowski remained loyal to Napoleon, even though the disaster in Russia paved the way for the Russian reoccupation of Poland. He rejoined Napoleon in Germany in 1813 and was given command of the Polish 8th Corps. On the eve of the Battle of Leipzig, he was made a marshal by Napoleon in recognition of his service and to inspire his Polish troops. Poniatowski was the only non-Frenchman to receive this honour. He and his troops fought with their usual tenacity and skill at Leipzig, holding key villages on the southern front against the Austrian and Prussian onslaught.
It was a doomed battle anyway.
At the end of the battle, Poniatowski commanded part of the rearguard. But their only escape route, a bridge over the Elster River, was blown up too soon.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Badly wounded, Poniatowski tried to escape by riding his horse across the river, but he was swept from his saddle and drowned.
God damn.
He had been a marshal for just 4 days.
That's just effed up, man. Drowning that way. That was, like I said in the video when I, reacted to it. That was just stupid. They panically just blown off the bridge while lots of people were there. It's just stupid.
In the short term, Poniatowski's loyalty to France achieved nothing, as following Napoleon's defeat, Russia occupied Poland for the next century. But Poniatowski's legend lived on, a model of Polish patriotism that inspired future generations.
Damn, he got a statue? That's big. I mean, it makes sense. Nobody was thinking about Poland. But this guy was thinking politically. Went with the Napoleon just so that he can win favor for Poland, and died doing so. So of course people would respect that.
Marshal Jordaan. As a young French private, Jordaan saw combat in Georgia during the American Revolutionary War. But he...
Why was French in American Revolution, man? Damn, I need to watch some detailed videos about that.
Then caught a fever that led to his discharge and plagued him for the rest of his life. When the French Revolution began, he was elected captain of his local National Guard unit, fought at the battles of Jemappes and Hochschutter, and was rapidly promoted to general. In 1794, he made his name defeating coalition forces at the Battle of Fleurus. This was a crucial victory of the Revolutionary War, which handed France control of Belgium for 20 years. It was also notable for the French army's use of balloon reconnaissance, the first effective use of an aircraft in military history. Jordaan became a prominent politician under the Directory, lending his name to a law that formalized France's policy of mass conscription. As a committed Republican, Jordaan refused to support Napoleon's coup of 18 Brumaire, but his fame as the victor of Fleurus was enough to ensure he became a marshal in 1804.
He opposed Napoleon, and yet Napoleon still made him marshal. That just shows that Napoleon was really, politically literate, because he knew what to do, when to do, even though he didn't like it.
Jordaan was on good terms with Napoleon's elder brother, Joseph. When Joseph became king of Spain in 1808, Jordaan went with him as his military advisor. But the situation in Spain would prove beyond Jordaan's military skills to solve. He faced stubborn resistance from the Spanish and Portuguese, supported by the British, and an equally stubborn refusal to cooperate from other French marshals in Spain, theoretically under Jordaan's command, but who repeatedly...
Look at that. Moncey, Soult, Souchet. These are some great marshals, Napoleonic marshals.
He ignored his orders and openly questioned his competence. Marshal Soult in Andalusia...
That's what's happened when you have, really key and important people, and under you they all go like, I'm better than you, why would I listen to you?
...was a prime offender, while Marshal Victor's insubordination at the Battle of Talavera contributed directly to the French defeat. Struck by another bout of ill health, Jordaan went home to recover. 2 years later he returned to Spain, but at the Battle of Vitoria in 1813, he and King Joseph were outmaneuvered and decisively beaten by Wellington, leading to the collapse of the Bonapartist Kingdom of Spain. Jordaan never held a major command again, but his 20 years of service and evident patriotism were widely recognized and respected. He was made a peer by Napoleon, a count by Louis XVIII, and died in 1833 while serving as governor of Les Invalides. Perignon, Bruen, Sergei, Kellermann, Grushi, Moncey, Pognatovsky, Jordaan. 8 down, 18 to go. Join us for part 2, when we'll continue the countdown. Coming soon. Thank you to Call of War for
Well, this was clearly, most of honorary and, lower level marshals. So I clearly didn't know most of them, but some of them I really knew about. So yeah, whenever, I thought, should I do the reaction to Napoleon's Marshal? Will I have anything to say about it? Will I remember anything? But surprisingly, I remember a lot about marshals, man. As the video progresses and high level marshals come, I'm pretty sure I would know a lot about them, especially about Dao. Dao better be first, man. Otherwise, I'll be pissed. Dao better be the number one. So yeah, this is Napoleon was just, his history is just immense. I'm glad the Epic History TV did very detailed Napoleonic Wars videos, because there were a lot of them, and now the Marshal videos. Because let's be honest, I've seen a lot of Napoleon videos, but none of like the Epic History TV did here. I really enjoyed, first time in my life I really enjoyed history at this level. I loved it. Alright people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe, so I would know which type of video to do more and which type of video to do less. So if you like my reaction like this type of video, please hit the like button and subscribe.